Speak on. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much. I will be very brief, comrades. Yes, I will be very brief. I think Malusi covered a whole era. Let me greet the Youth League leadership, the president of the Youth League, the Secretary General and members of the National Executive Committee, the past presidents, Secretary Generals present here, Deputy President. There's only one Deputy President I don't see here, Andile Lungisa. And Andrew Dipela. You can't miss Andile. Then you are not serious about the Youth League. The man is colorful. The treasurer of the Youth League, Comrade Pule, former. Good evening, comrades. I'm going, like I said, going to be very brief. The Youth League was confronted and grappling with the question of how it relates with a democratic dispensation. Like all youth organizations in the country and the youth movement as a whole. And then in its first conference, it then responded by saying twin tasks. Because the Youth League was not sure whether it's the right thing to protest, because we are the Youth League of the ruling, not the ruling party, the governing party, the African National Congress. So what do you do when young people are activists and they need to be mobilized and they are forever restless and they need to be harnessed? The Youth League grappled with this question for quite some time in terms of how you relate with government. Before we arrived at decisions to take to the streets, it was not an easy decision. So this strategic perspective began to inform the approach the Youth League and the youth movement had to take. Sansko then used to say, our relationship with government is both contradictory in the form of confrontation and reinforcement. And then they had the pleasure of protesting and doing all sorts of things. But what does it mean to champion the cause of the youth? It meant that us being the Youth League of a governing party put us at an advantageous position to be able to champion this interest of young people. It's a dynamic process on its own because we can protest with a full understanding that the demands of the youth will be met, but not in vain. When we protest today for NSFAS and take to the streets, we know that we'll get a positive answer, and the force that will win will be us at the helm. And in that way, we win in the hegemony of the youth. We are not just seen as parrots and drum majorettes of the governing party, but we really, in reality, champion the cause of the youth. At an organizational level, the Youth League has to carve, in a lack of better words, its own niche in terms of we are a militant organization. This is what we have inherited from Peter Mugaba and all leaders who came before, and with the formation of the Youth League from the South African Youth Congress. How do we project that in the politics of the ANC post-1994? The Youth League was very active in shaping the discussions in the country towards transition and so on, were very active through Peter Mugaba and so on, shaping those discussions and articulating our view. At one point, when the armed struggle was suspended, the ANC convened the Youth League at Shell House, which is Luthuli House now, but the Luthuli House that is changed into residential area. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning, that meeting. We arrived with Peter there in that meeting late, and Mandela gave him a dressing, tongue lash for an hour, or 30 minutes to an hour, because we went clubbing. Because Peter was not drinking, was not smoking, but he believed he will dance the whole night. So with Peter, we are not going to break here and dance, it's not complete. So excuse us when you see us doing these things, because we inherited this stuff. But comrades, the Youth League was not short of ideas and engagement. It was grounded. Even when we argued about the suspension of the armed struggle and everything else, there was clarity of thought. And when the Youth League was launched in the country, bringing all youth formations together into the Provisional National Youth Committee and launched on the 27th of October at Orlando Stadium, and with the core group being the youth section and the South African Youth Congress, the Youth League never was short of ideas and engagement and understanding the moment. We wanted this armed struggle to continue, not because we did not understand that it was a tactic. We wanted it to continue because we're militant. We wanted to arrive in Pretoria with bazookas and everything. Because that moment, the strategy and tactics dictated that this is going to be an armed seizure of power. And the leadership had read it correctly that this thing is not going to happen. So we need to suspend the armed struggle. The leadership had to convince the Youth League first that this is the right decision. So many of comrades skipped the country for the regular army because everybody wanted to be MK. When people were coming back, others were going out. And they ended up in Uganda. And I hear them, they speak like they are great revolutionaries, some of them today. They ended here. They were never in Angola. And then Babuya Lapa. So Begin Kosi, this man trained us, this comrade. He was the one who was trained because when politics, ANC was unbanned, we were raw. We were never taught how to run organization. We just found ourselves in this thing, many arrested, and that is why we did not agree with this concept of lost generation. We contested it. We said we are not the lost generation. We are the militant youth of our country who fight for the total liberation of our people. And when they said we are lost generation, we said not, we are not. And the youth then had to swell the ranks and be trained in means of formal organizational operation. And I think you were working for Creek. That friend of yours, Uzi, I met him in a bar there in Joburg. He's still very good, that comrade you were working with. Peggy was with Bostanza Bupape, but he doesn't speak about it. Phoebe was our political commissar in the South African Youth Congress. There were a few women there. If I'm not mistaken, it was Phoebe. She doesn't like me to talk about it. It was Phoebe, it was Sharon Davids, it was Dipuo Peters there in the South African Youth Congress. from the Western Cape, University of Western Cape, but very active. Even in the unbanning, she was there in the political education of the ANC Youth League. Lulu is an old croc. I'm Qiba Mapulu Lomd. He spent his youth in jail, this man. That is why he's not old. He's the president of the Congress of South African Students. Mlungisi Johnson. Kosas. And then we had a privilege, comrades. Tina, we became president and SGs, but we had a privilege that you did not have. We call it a privilege today because we're still alive. Other comrades died. But this organization, the Youth League, is a militant organization of the youth of the ANC. And it had foremost clarity. And what we have done here today, you continue with a very positive tradition. You cannot lead an organization without being inspired by where you come from. So to bring us here today and talk about these experiences, Abo Malusi, Songe, Apa, is very good. Keep it that way. Even if whatever faction in the ANC wins, keep it this way. Because in that way, you are informing yourself about where we come from. These discussions don't have to end here. They must continue, even informally, about this experience. And today is very important because we had a lecture before I came here of Comrade Dumanogwe, and it was delivered by the former Deputy Chief Justice, Dikgang Moseneke, and it is organized by the Dumanogwe Foundation as well as the Dumanogwe firm of lawyers. So Bongugai Tobi, Dalimpofu, Dai Rush, all of them under one roof. So we spoke there, but the lecture was delivered by the judge. So there are judges there and former judges. And they did really acknowledge the ANC today there. So comrades of Sidibeng are leading a program of this repatriation of Comrade Dumanogwe. They started a project even of a book which is being authored by Comrade Tamika Plaki. It's no longer PAC now. And so Tamika Plaki gave me notes. So I'm not the first secretary of the ANC from Free State. The first was Saul Plaki. He was not from Kimberley. When they want to make themselves feel good, they say he was from Kimberley. He was not. He was from Tabanchu. And he relocated to Kimberley. Sometimes nabantu base Northwest mabafuna uvakamnandi abakholeni bari Saul Plaki kwaru. But he came from the Free State. The first, the Secretary General of the ANC. So Dumanogwe, there's going to be, that was a lecture, but a whole lot of comrades who passed away are coming back in repatriation. It's going to be a big project, which the Youth League must come close. You know, these lectures of factions, they want to promote themselves. There is a lecture in China there in my branch. Come and talk about Dumanogwe. Our mas no mas. And then Niabizana zil lecture left and right. The moment of lectures is now with this repatriation that has started. And I think the Youth League must participate actively in that program. And the Youth League, like Malusi have said, has been at the center of youth development struggle. We suffered here because we were compared. When we came, Nabo Malusi, all the time in the NEC were compared with Peter. Now, I remember one day Steve Chwete saying in the National Executive Committee, when we took Peter away, and made him a deputy minister and so on, we didn't give the youth another Peter Mokaba. So they wanted us to be Peter Mokaba in an era of governance, which was not possible. And they were compared all the time. But we earned our stripes by way of leading the struggles of the youth and adapting to the new era of championing youth development. What do we mean by youth development? We had to develop a youth policy. Comrades, 30 years on, we talked about National Youth Service Program. This week, I received a document from government, Comrade Malusi and Phoebe, from government implementing the massification of National Youth Service through the South African Defence Force. We have been fighting for that for 30 years. It did not only end there. We used to struggle with how do we champion the cause of the youth and deal with social campaigns like HIV and AIDS? How do we deal with the popular culture? Here are young people, first in terms of HIV and AIDS, we need to mobilize them, engage with them, without becoming an NGO. And then we used to have another man, may his soul rest in peace, they call him Songazom Chongile. He was assigned a task in the NWC of youth development, and he developed a campaign with Phoebe. The NWC and the NEC adopted single issue campaign. So we had to deal with issues of substance abuse. But those comrades were abusing substance more than any other thing, leading a campaign. So we got a sponsor from KWV. And then also Themba Nobatana was our youth policy convener at head office. And then KWV gave us a lot of money for substance abuse at the workshops. And these workshops were going to the ground. But Malusi will always say, but why is it like, Matota, you are abusing substance more than... and then the concept of responsible use of alcohol came about. And then the training was about that. We had to deal with issues of early teenage pregnancy. We produced a document that became policy of government. And Mahlengi Bengu was the chairperson of the Youth Commission. And then the Youth Commission, after Mahlengi was Jabu and all of that, and then there was Umsobomvu Youth Fund, which was formed out of the demutualization process of Old Mutual. 1 billion rand, established Umsobomvu Youth Fund. And then we appointed a man called Malose Kekana as the CEO of Umsobomvu Youth Fund. A lot of projects all over the place. And then we said through the National Youth Development Policy, we must ensure that we massify National Youth Service Program in the country. 30 years on, we're implementing it. When we wanted that program, Trevor Manuel said there is no money to implement the massification of the National Youth Service Program. Now, the Youth League started this program then. We realize it now. Because in our youth policy, in terms of the research, we realize the problem of South Africa's youth is a problem of disengaged young people. Early teenage pregnancy in the township, substance abuse. How do we deal with that particular problem? And then we had to respond to that particular situation through a policy document and ensuring that this policy is implemented not parochially but by the entire government. And then we produced a response to youth unemployment by adopting learnerships. That is the Youth League program through the SETAs that found expression today that benefited a lot of the youth. We delivered the EPWP for the ANC government, that it was implemented in government, extended public works program. And then they said, no, instead of the youth service, we will implement this public service, this EPW program. It came from our own policy document. It means the ANC, whenever they wanted to think about what must happen to the youth, it is the Youth League that was giving direction. And that is what you are faced with today. And then the part of the popular culture, we assigned a man called Mzwandile from KZN, Nhlanzi. He became a friend of Dr. Khumalo. He ended up wanting to be like Dr. Khumalo. So the man was keeping meetings of the NWC. Where is he? A stadium. Wamba not doctor. That time, they used to drive very nice cars, 323. Tina Youth League, we were administratively independent. We're not dependent, Comrade President, to the ANC. We drove our cars. We had our own salary, but the money came from the ANC. So they gave us the budget, but we determined what to do with that budget. So, and then they had the pool cars and the nice cars that I don't know whether Phoebe knew how to drive then, or it was driven. But nonetheless, we have had a very important movement. And that is why when we came in the ANC, it was important to launch the Youth League. It was a priority. That thing, we were not doing it because we are ANC Secretary General. We were doing it because we think this is right. Because the Youth League, like Sitle have said the other day, that lull of the Youth League not in existence for some time was a disaster. Actually, the decision to disband the Youth League was wrong by the ANC. That decision was wrong because that decision was not remedying anything. Even if Abu Kolen, they were struggling and all of that, they did not deserve to be disbanded. Or ngaba ba disbandiwe. Ngabo Kolen ba disbandiwe. Okay, yes. Yanine not disband. But we fought that. We were defeated. And then once you lose your autonomy, the ANC will give you their friends to lead. And then it took some time as to, I don't know how many task teams. But when I came as SG, I dealt with one task team, Ngaba Shifter. That was forever. And then we moved very fast to the conference. So, and today, comrades, as I conclude, we are here. And we're not patronizing you. Your task is very difficult. And then we had to deal with the whole thing about the popular culture I was explaining. Because Walter Sisulu in that meeting, remember, we had at 6 o'clock talking about the armed struggle and all of that. He then asked us a question there, what is our relationship with Dr. Kumar? And we looked at each other, we thought, these old people, what do we have to do with some soccer player there? And then he said, no. As an organization of the youth, you can never have somebody who's popular like that and has got no relationship with the movement. He doesn't have to have a relationship by membership, but relationship nje. Ahlale kubona ukhona. Uyabona ngokuma uqeda ukunfonela la. But ngiyaqonda ukuthi ndenza umsebenzi kaKholeni. So you can never have somebody onjalo who's popular. It was Mandela, it was Coca-Cola, it was Dr. Khumalo, and it's good, it's nice. And then the Youth League started to throw these nice parties around. But it doesn't mean that you've got to lose your identity and now start to be Maho and then lose your identity. Among the youth and the populace of the country, we are a political formation. When young people want answers about the political situation in the country, and they are naive and they don't know, they must come to the Youth League. They cannot go to Julius. They must come to you and ask, what is this GNU? And they don't know. These young people don't know politics. And they are popular. Amapiano and everywhere else. Those answers, they must get them from us. And how you navigate that space is not to drown in it, is to stay close. ANC leadership didn't like this because we used to organize parties on our birthdays, and then before the era of the Instagrams, the leadership didn't understand. The leadership didn't understand Kwaito. Ask Malusi. We had to teach them. Because our Oscar bebethukana. Uyabona? Bebethukana ngale Kwaito abantu abadala bathi ayisuka. We brought it to the ANC. For the first time in 2009, when COPE was trying to get to the youth through popular culture, we dominated. It's not permanent feature that every election you must employ that tactic we employed 10 years ago in that campaign. It changes all the time. All the good things they learn from us because we are able to adapt. So you can march. You should march. You don't have to ask sometime. You ask a lot. And then don't be irritated when you speak and then we call you. We were called like that many times. It happened to Lulu. I don't want to talk about his experience. He's here. He should have spoken about it. He didn't speak about it. It happened to Peter. It happened to me. It happened to Malusi. In my own experience, I escaped DC because I said women are paraplegic. And then I was supposed to go to the DC of the ANC. And the SG of the ANC defended me. That no. And it was linked to the ANC National Conference because we were opposed to the president third term. And we became aware that in that third term opposition, we were joined also by Wounded Lions who joined our popular campaign. We brought them in and we accepted them because when we went to Pulugwan and we said no to 2 centers of power and no to third term, it's because comrades went to Comrade Mbeki and then they said to him, you are still young, what are you going to do? Continue. And we were telling the whole of Africa that we, the ANC and our leaders, 2 terms is enough. So these ones, they said, no, at an organizational level, the president can continue, and then the ANC can have another president. We said, what principle guides that? Except just people's feelings. Who said that the president cannot be replaced? We didn't fight President Mbeki personally, but there are others who were fighting him because they could not handle him at an ideological level, including in the alliance. In the alliance, the outcry then, we had a very, very intelligent president of the ANC. One time I found myself in the toilet with Peter Mgaba, and then he said to me, what are we going to do? I said, what? He said, this president is too intelligent, more than all of us. It's dangerous for the revolution. I said, how is it dangerous? Is it not beneficial? He said, no, that is wrong. It's a problem. This man is too intelligent. He's too intelligent. It's a problem. And then that is the kind of president we had, Comrade TM. Others came because in the alliance, they said, no, the president takes decisions unilaterally. Because the president was engaging. And one time in the meeting of the alliance, we found ourselves in a meeting with President Mbeki. Other comrades were still coming. But the alliance component, all of them were present. They were there in the meeting at Shell House. And then as part of the Youth League, we're part of the delegation. So we arrived with the president. So they said, no, how are we going to start the meeting? Because the ANC delegation is not all of them here. It's COSATU and the Communist Party, Bomadisha. So we raised the hand then in that meeting. No, the delegation will find us on the way. The man you want, Kiwo, is around. Let's start, because you say the problem is the president. Let's start. Here is the man you want. And then President Mbeki presented a discussion document for that meeting. I think the title was Domestic and International Setting Analysis in the meeting. And then the ANC was too strong for the allies. I'm saying it boldly and openly to you. So when we went to Polokwane, because of that, other comrades joined us because they wanted to get rid of this nemesis called Thabo Mbeki. And then we, at that time, were very principled on what we wanted to achieve. Don't blame us on the candidate we fielded. We wanted Zuma. So I was with Sihle. We went to Mbeki. That's where our friendship with TM ended. It was Monday morning. So I'm concluding on that part. It was Monday morning. The NEC of the Youth League had decided. We never took decisions and not briefed the ANC. We took a decision that no to 2 centers of power, no to third term, and then we were now developing a document which we developed, and then we took that document to the ANC. And then we had to brief the leadership on leadership issues. So I was mandated with him as SG and president. So we arrived in the morning, Monday morning, we briefed TM. That, as the Youth League, we have decided that, you must not come back as the third term. Yeah, no, we're not gossiping. You must not come back. And then, we are still discussing names. But we'll come and brief you about it. That meeting didn't end. And then TM said, Chiefs, please, can you go, man? Please. I don't know, why are you in a hurry for this? Why is the Youth League in a hurry for this? Out of so many things, youth development and so on, you just come here and discuss leadership. Chiefs, we have got to go to a meeting. Thanks. Hey, we left with this man. Now, we were saying, this is how OR and Mandela were dismissed by Kuma. And then in the morning, and then they had to walk in the early hours. Nam no sihle, but we didn't have to walk. We had to take a lift to the 7th floor. And then the president dismissed us. But that's what happened. But that's not the only thing. Even the eye of the needle, it was the product of the Youth League. In Mafigan conference of the ANC, when everybody left the ANC, went to government, our first conference we convened was in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. And that conference elect Bantu Olomisa as number 1 in the additionals. We then saw there's a problem with this organization. We can't have Olomisa ahead of our leaders. Just imagine our conference as number 1. We said there is a problem of leadership. We went to Lutuli House and produced a document called Organizational and Leadership Issues. First time, you must go to Google. And then we started to characterize the problems of the ANC, subjective and objective weaknesses of the ANC, forcing a discussion in the organization. And then we started to say, no, leadership has forgotten about the organization. They've all left. They are enjoying blue lights. They're in government and all of that proper. That document tabled by Phoebe and Malusi on our behalf in the working committee. We went to the NEC of the ANC. We took it to the national conference. The eye of the needle was born because of the ANC Youth League. So, Youth League has always made strategic interventions in the life of the African National Congress. Not howling. The period of howling came with Julius. And the reason Julius we differed because other comrades wanted Saki, and then we said, no, Julius must come in. We cannot have presidents of the Youth League who are over age all the time. But the person who wanted to be president was Songes. And when we win in Pulugwani conference, Songes will come to my room. We won yesterday, we had a party, we were last. And then he came to my room and then he started to say to me, hey, President, what do you think about the conference? Did it end out? I mean, we come from a hectic thing like this. You want us to discuss the Youth League conference? We'll discuss it at home. I know. He kept coming back. And then I just said, no, I think Julius must take over. Yo! He came to Joburg, convened everybody during December. No, that president is a problem. He wants that boy from Limpopo to take over. But I motivated that, look, why? We will train him, but it is time that Songes, we must leave Youth League to the youth. We cannot leave the Youth League all the time at the age of 37. And then the Youth League president all the time. Peter Mugaba left the Youth League, he was old. We only discovered at this party that he was 40. This man. He's been leading us over age. So we said, no, man, let's prepare this. Of course, we differed. Others argued for tradition and all of that. And obviously, the preparations for that conference at the political level, we cannot be proud of because the membership was a disaster. People were showing buttocks there and all of that. Now, howling and not engaging began to be the talk of the town of the Youth League that is not engaging. And then did not reflect militancy. Whilst we're still working on that, the Youth League was disciplined. And Malema was expelled. We went to the DC of the ANC. That's where the thing started to go wrong. Because the reason why I was defended, Khalima said, you cannot doubt the bona fides of the Youth League president. The Youth League president is a Youth League president. He defended our autonomy, not Mbalula. And then he started to give me politics. Why? I must not call women paraplegic. Because those women, when I arrived there in that meeting where I was arguing paraplegic, I was speaking English, I said it's figurative speech. And then there was Mavivi Miagayaga that side, and then he looked at me, she cried. It was as though I'm referring to her. And then Khalima said, as the SG, the ANC will apologize on behalf of the ANC, which is what he did. But comrades, he was defending our autonomy. That's why when we apologize on behalf of the ANC, when Colin has said something wrong, it's not like we are defending the Youth League autonomy because it is through the Youth League we learn, fight and produce. There's no other learning platform. There's no other learning platform in the ANC other than the Youth League. So that's what we're defending. And the ANC Secretary General understood that these ones, they must be dealt with. And after that NWC meeting, he took me every day, lunchtime and all of that, why this thing is not done. Comrade President of the Youth League. But Terra was in a hurry to hang me. Now, when Malema was taken to the DC, we warned against that. That we are now taking away the Youth League, he must be corrected. But others took him to the DC for wrong reasons. Because Malema was beginning now to talk things that others knew how they came into presidency, that if we can allow this Youth League like this, it means it will affect my presidency. So we must get rid of them. And they did. And that was a disaster. And then we went to a conference of the Youth League elected leadership. That leadership did not finish its mandate. A task team was established. And then a conference was convened, successful. Pule was trotting. He will be talking today as former president. And then when we arrived there in that conference, mina angitsho sengingaphandle. Siyafika laphana, nabo Malusi were invited as always. Hey, the delegates, the conference is correcting nicely. Hey, I get a message there that this thing is not going to continue. How? Why? The leadership has taken a decision. There is a problem here. What is the problem? No, there is a problem here. Apparently, this conference is a problem. Somebody went to gossip to the leadership and said, that Pule Mabe, if you think Julius was a problem, you will see Pule Mabe on steroids. Cannot be allowed. And then they started to concoct funny things that he's working for CIA, he's got a lot of money and all of that. And then was going to be the SG, this one the president. The conference didn't have a problem. These comrades were going to have their own conference successful. The leadership of the ANC comrades arrived and stopped a conference of the youth. It will never happen today. It will never. I can guarantee you that it will never happen because the people who are leading here today, we are the products of this organization. We know the value of the Youth League to the ANC. We don't want to produce parrots, drama majorettes. Mashapa used to call us drama majorettes of the ANC from the Communist League and the SANSCO. So he says, no, this thing of leadership of the PYA is not hereditary. It's not like in Tuyabunga, Kagoaluna, and all of that. That's how he used to insult us, Mashapa, the president of SANSCO. But it was nice. We used to have good debates. Not this thing of being insulted that leadership talks diarrhea by Communist League. What kind of leadership is that? Lilu naskala ruaka batbaba. You must engage politically. Even GNU, when people differ with it, even yourselves, if you've got reservation, you must engage. That is our culture. Don't go around thinking labeling people and insulting leaders is revolutionary and it defines a young person. That's not the way to go. You know, I go to Johannesburg region as I conclude, and I'm going to charge that comrade. I go to a meeting. I say to the comrades, this is a meeting of the NWC, of the NC. Nobody must take videos here and do what you did to Dada. Because whatever Dada said there, it was not meant for public consumption. He was talking to his comrades in a lekgotla. Bam videorize. When they finish videorizing him, they take it out. ANC people. Because they wanted this mayor to be dealt with very fast and probably to be put aside. But they are not aware they are damaging the NDR. They are not damaging Dada. Dada we can deal with him, put him aside. But the ANC will now be negotiating with Ghana or Kai with everybody. Kanti, when he has presented his political overview in the meeting, you comrades in the meeting must say, Chairperson, we don't agree with your view. And don't even go out here and repeat that thing. It's your view. When they leave the Lekgotla, they table, it's like President Ramaphosa going to the Lekgotla and with video rising. And then the whole country. You know, they didn't videorize us like that, but it did happen. Me, Mduntuli, and the president, in a virtual meeting of the ANC, were recorded. You see, comrades, the levels of ill-discipline in the ANC are beyond question. A comrade, we're there in the meeting, we talk, he goes. And then he insults leadership. No, it's fine. Communist Party doesn't say to the Communist League, you can argue with the SG of the ANC, but don't say comrade is talking diarrhea. Bayamiyeka kumnandi osoli qhebelele kumnandi. I will never allow Colin or Ngudle to insult leaders of the alliance. Never. Under my watch as the SG. Working with the collective, I will be the first to tell them you have crossed the line. Argue politically, I will defend you. And will open a space for you to engage. ANC allows dissent. You don't have to think like us. Thabo Mbeki used to fight with us all the time and say you are too educated for the youth. You are too bookish. You must be simple. The youth don't want you to stand in front of them and address them in a rally for 2 hours, sweating alone there. Reading an iPad. They want you to talk from the heart. Ubhute man Collins sizakunqanda. Ungabhuti kakhulu. Ude uye ku DC. You must, but the youth, Khalima Mutlante used to say, the Youth League is a necessary irritation of the ANC. Even your children, comrades, in the household setting, if your child akakhali, you start to get worried. Ingathi ungamtswikila nje. Uve ukuthi lo mntana uyakhala or what? It's been quiet. Kanti umntana unezinye problems. Wena ucinga bafana, oh, this child is so sweet. You enjoy getting drunk and sleeping. Akakhali ndiyakutshela the whole night. Kanti umntana une problem ezinye ezifuna ugqirha. He needs a special school. Uyabona pha elokishini, umntana elokishini, if he's got special needs, uyabethwa. Why you dumb? Why you failure? Kanti umntana, no, doesn't belong to. He will never pass in that school. There's a boy who was hitting cricket like nobody's business in South Africa. His father took me aside one time as a minister and said that my kids have got special needs. You must not ungamkhwazi. The only thing he knows is cricket. He's not passed at school, nothing. That boy used to hit that ball. And then I realized, the only thing he knows is cricket. And whenever I talk to him, he's very reserved, but the only thing he knows is cricket. And Balus is right. This thing of fighting for transformation and what you see, Rasi, Rasmas, and all of that, it's not an accident. We started it as the Youth League. Transformation, fighting for transformation in the Springboks and all of that. When we went to government, we were given an opportunity to lead. We brought those things to the fore in government. We introduced the Transformation Charter. We did away with the quotas. And then we brought the Transformation Charter and at the same time the Transformation Agenda. Springboks, Kolisi was never going to be captain. We brought him in. Rasi Erasmus is the best performing coach because rugby people came to me and said, the man who understands the agenda of transformation is Rasi. I said, Lumlu. But yes, Rasi understand. He grew up with Xhosa people there in the Eastern Cape. Rasi understand this thing. First thing, Rasi, when he arrived, he appointed Sia as the captain. African black captain. Umdones Tugu. And says this Tugu but kwaba nomdo mnyama in the field of play. All of those things, comrades, did not happen on their own. It's because the Youth League was always in the forefront. Beauty queens were involved. That's why still today, I've got a standing invited Miss South Africa. Benefits of the Youth League. Because one time, Peter Mukaba said to us, we're at his house, and then he said, a concept of beauty is democratic. Daddy Chief, what do you mean by that? I don't know, a concept of beauty is democratic. All women are beautiful. Chief, why are we not invited in this Miss South Africa thing? Hey, what are you doing there? He says, no, but the Youth League must begin to talk about this thing. And then our entry point was that why is Miss South Africa won only after basitsana by white girls? Abasivulela, sangene boardroom. Why? Ask him, the president of the Youth League. I was with Kulegani Janga, said I was the leader in that. I won it for you. And then from there, bangen, abawina, batabamnyama, and then bawina, Miss South Africa. Youth League intervened decisively, owned by Sun International. You might think it's a simple thing, but it is important. You know, these boys who are singing in South Africa today, once they get money, they fight among themselves. But we know them. So we call them to order from time to time. Hip hop, they fight, and all of that. Here, Grotman, and so on. We are not a piano. Behind the scenes is just to stamp our authority. That if you look at parenthood, the people who can guide you on this thing is us. Maporisa, we discovered him at Kalawa Chesme from Shoshanguve. We brought him in, and then the first group that he performed for was Uhuru. When I met, we met Boom Shaka, and all of that was at Peter Mukaba's house. Christos, Vinita Vinci, and all of that, Wicked Sounds. Down the streets from Shell House, all of them, 8th of January, Peter Mukaba's birthday, they were there. They were there at the house, celebrities, we used to see them there. All these people who are singing. And then ANC, we started to embrace and give direction to this thing. Because these kids, they moved with times. They defied the odds. They refused to be like Americans. When things were changing, they kept their own identity. And they came up with something they called Kwaito. Up until today, Amapiano, it is something that is evolving, this popular culture. They didn't rush to become Americans and all of that. They started to rap with their vernac from down in Mafikeng, Utlamo, Johannesburg, Bare, Babashimani, and all of that to today. And then we embraced them, showed them the direction. Because the struggle and the popular struggle in this country did not go on its own without the progressive culture. Hand in hand. Miriam Makeba, Yuma Sigela in the forefront. It has happened. And then we understood that even today, Youth League cannot allow that. And then think that the only thing that brings us closer is material things. It's money. It's good things. It's these things that they like. Ukyala were expensive. No, that's not the clothes and all of that. No. Tina, our task is to be at the center of these things as the youth and provide leadership in a very strategic way. And not to be seen and ejected by the youth. That these people don't understand what they want to do. I said I'm going to speak very short, but it's unlike me. And I'm very deputy president. This was our deputy president, Masangai. I followed in his footsteps. International relations. It was Neville Naidu, who stayed in Budapest for the longest of time. That man loved Budapest. Neville Naidu. He was the president of Hoofdi. And then I think he took over from that Sudan comrade. Who was it? Who was staying in our office all the time? South Sudan. And then Joe was coordinating international relations. And then Iraklis from Greece came after Neville. Yeah, Rashid from South Sudan was the one who was leading Hoofdi. And then I followed in those footsteps. The Youth League, whilst I was president, they said I must become vice president of UC. I also became president of UC for 10 years in Vienna. Social Democrats, very funny ideology and all of that, but we provided leadership. Now, the person who took us out of UC is Julius because he went there with ANC tendencies, wanting to bribe everybody to be elected when he was dismissed from the ANC. And the Youth League was chucked off. But I'm happy that you are back. Those forums are very important. Nowadays, I see you every day you are in Russia. So I was with the president of Youth League in Russia. You are in Russia and all of that and so on. But the Youth League played a very critical role in terms of international fora and leading those struggles and even guiding the ANC. It's us who brought close to the ANC the struggles of the people of Palestine and Western Sahara. The comrades of Ujesario, were at our offices. Today they are ambassadors, in Pretoria. All of them, that whole crew that lead Western Sahara Polisario Front, they were here at Luthuli House, supported by the Youth League. We took them to school, including our comrades from South Sudan. When the president there was John Garang before they shot him in the air. All those comrades were attending school at Vets and were paying for them even in the Western Cape. John Pangesh. I asked them in South Sudan when I went there with Phoebe, where is John Pangesh? They didn't talk much. I think he sold out somewhere, somehow. They were not talking about him in very, In Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF. We worked with ZANU-PF. Don't be afraid of them. They are very old. They call themselves whatever. China. We've been in good books with China. Worked very well with China. And then we worked very well with Taiwan. They used to give us money. Before Mandela said there is one China policy. They gave us money for bursary scheme, for Youth League activists. And then Thabo Mbeki Foundation also gave us a lot of money. Now, you need that for your own activists in the party. I don't know whether you can sustain that if the TG of the Youth League always says that there's no problem about money. But you must know there is a lot of problem about money. But the TG in front of cameras, money is not a problem. We resolve everything. Thank you very much, comrades. Thank you.